Hey everyone, how's it going? Genocide here. Today we have a sponsored video for the new big Hoyoverse game, Zenless Zone Zero. Zenless Zone Zero has a futuristic Japanese-inspired urban environment named New Eridu, where large portals named Hollows have appeared and hostile ethereals have wreaked havoc on humanity. This video aims to go over the game's combat system and how it functions for beginners. First, let's talk about the factions the characters come from. We have the Cunning Hares, comprised of the beginning characters of the story and hired to do all sorts of odd jobs and missions around the city. Then we have Bellowbog Heavy Industry, a construction company that fixes up after the disasters and has bear as a member? A really big bear. Next we have the Victoria Housekeeping Agency, which, while dressed as maids or butlers, they're hired by their clients and never fail to meet expectations, but can sometimes go a little bit overboard. Section 6 is a special operations department and operates on secretive missions related to Hollows, executing their missions flawlessly. And similarly, the Criminal Investigation Special Response Team, that's a mouthful, keeps the peace within New Eridu and the people safe from the Hollows. Finally, there's the Sons of Caledon, which, while not much is really known about them in the story at the moment, because they're a newer addition to the game, they appear to be a very chaotic group of agents hired to do things. Zenless Zone Zero has also recently reached 50 million downloads worldwide, and as a thank you gift, they're giving out 1,600 polychrome to all of the players. If you're interested in this game at all, consider clicking the link below and claiming your 1,600 polychromes. All of these characters also fall into different roles and elements. The character roles are the attack, stun, support, defense, and anomaly archetypes. Attack is mostly damage dealers, as the name suggests. Stun helps you build daze to stun the foes. Support buffs the team. Defense units are bulky and take damage very well. And Anomaly helps by applying debuffs to enemies. The elements in the game at the moment are fire, electric, ice, physical, and ether, all of which have corresponding debuffs that they can also land. Electric is able to build up shock, doing damage and stunning periodically. Physical deals massive damage and increases the daze on enemies tremendously. Freeze, as its name suggests, freezes the targets, and they also take extra crit damage while hit. Burn does constant damage, and ether causes extra damage every time you hit enemies affected by it. Zenless Zone Zero's combat is fast-paced action where every character in the game has a basic attack, a skill, and an ultimate. Sounds simple enough, right? The basic attacks generally are around 3 to 5 attacks in succession for each character, but some, such as Von Lycan for instance, can actually have hold attacks that change how it operates. Next, we have special attacks, which work differently than most games because they actually have no cooldown between use, but they generally also do very little damage or weaker effect when used this way. However, from fighting, you can actually gain energy to use the EX special attacks, which are super empowered versions of the normal special attack, doing way more damage, which is generally when you actually want to use them. As you fight, your decibel meter under your health bar will charge until you have your ultimates ready. Now, the important thing to note is that every character actually shares the same meter for their ultimates, so you actually have to choose which one of your 3 characters will use it for the largest impact. It's important to know that as you damage enemies with these attacks, you also will build daze on them. And that's the bar below their health bar that, when becomes full, they become dazed and unable to attack. During this state, they also take more damage from attacks, so it can actually be good to save the largest damaging abilities, such as your ultimate, for right then. One of the important mechanics in this game is also chain attacks. These occur when you have at least 2 characters on your team alive and you hit a dazed enemy. It will slow time, then force you to choose which character you want to swap to, the left or the right one, doing a ton of damage with their ability when they come in. There's a couple more important mechanics to understand as well, which are dodging and perfect assist. When enemies attack, if you dodge, it will slow time for a moment, and attacking after causes a dodge attack. However, when an enemy glows yellow, you can also use a character swap button, which will light up on the bottom right, and if you change to another character, you'll parry the oncoming attack, but you have a limited number of uses that build up as you fight, so you can't just parry every single one back to back. But successful parries will also build a lot of daze on enemies. Of course, most of the characters in Zenless Zone Zero also have special techniques that set them apart, other than just the skills and ultimates. One example would be the character Ellen Jo, who's who's able to enter a special sprinting state running really fast after you use the dodge ability and hold it. When attacking in this state, she can generate flash freeze charges that enhance her next basic attacks, turning them into ice damage. Another example would be Soldier 11, who has a mechanic that if you time every basic attack correctly back to back, her attacks actually become enhanced with fire, doing a lot more damage. This causes you to want to play her closer to a rhythm game where you can't just mash your attacks out randomly, but you actually need to correctly time them to get the most out of her. Since every character can play very differently, you may want to be careful that you use someone that actually fits your playstyle rather than just the character that's supposedly the best on a tier list. Now, it's also important when playing to build a team that synergizes with each other for maximum efficiency. So let's talk about making team compositions and why they work so it's easier to understand. Currently in the base version of the game, there are multiple popular team combinations that people are using, and one example is a normal attacking damage dealing team. The most popular and powerful team for that archetype is using Ellen Jo, Von Lycan, and Sokaku. The reasoning behind this is Von Lycan has a synergistic Ice Resist Shred debuff, making all ice damage that you deal do way more, while he also does a crazy amount of days, allowing for damage windows with Ellen Jo, because she's your main DPS. As an added bonus, Sokaku also gives a large attack boost, while also providing an ice damage increase. Ellen Jo, as your main attacker, is swapped in whenever you need to just get as much damage as possible after you've debuffed the enemy with Von Lycan and buffed your team up with Sokaku, and she just nukes them for huge amounts. Another good thing about this team is that since every member can land freeze because they're all ice, it lets it stack up way easier because each one is helping each other stack up the ice damage. When building a team, it's also important to look at characters' passives to see how they can benefit one another. Another type of team is one with Grace Howard, Rena, and Anton. This type of team, rather than only relying on the damage of the initial attacks, relies on landing debuffs, namely the shock status. The main header of the team, Grace, is able to spam the shock status with her fast attacking abilities and can also be a main or sub DPS as needed. Next up, Rena is able to buff the team with a 30% defense penetration boost and also extends the duration of your shocks by 30%, while also giving an electric damage team boost, perfectly pairing with Grace. Anton can be used as your third member to be able to trigger the damage from shock every fourth attack that he deals, making him able to easily activate the shocks that Grace lands, making your shock debuffs become a large source of your damage. As you can see, team synergy is the most important part of Zenless Zone Zero's combat, and it's actually way more important than just the rarity of the characters. Hopefully this intro to combat helped you understand the basics of the game, as it can be a bit overwhelming when trying to know what to focus on and how to form a team. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing to the channel, and I hope to see you next time.